Once upon a time, there was a king who had three wonderful daughters. The youngest, Psyche, was much more beautiful than her two sisters and looked like a goddess among mere mortals. The fame of its beauty had been spread throughout the whole kingdom, and men kept coming to her palace to admire and worship her. When people would see her, they used to say that not even Aphrodite herself could compete Psyche. The more people were getting to know Psyche, the less would remember the goddess of love and beauty. All the honors reserved to her were then attributed to a simple mortal girl. Goddess could not accept such a situation and required help from his son Eros. He told him in distress, "Use your power and make this little shameless girl to fall in love with the vilest and the most despicable creature who has ever walked on earth." Eros agreed to do so, but the moment the god saw her, he was mesmerized by Psyche's beauty, which is truly splendid.
The fact that my mother is jealous of this mortal being is no coincidence. Her beauty can eclipse the most beautiful among the nymphs and goddesses.
And in unexpected turn of events, Psyche turned in her sleep, and her movement disoriented Eros, who accidentally wounded himself with his own weapon. The wounded god instantly fell in love with this young and beautiful mortal. He couldn't make the charming maiden fall in love with a horrible creature, but also decided not to tell his mother. Psyche, however, was feeling bad because not only she could not fall in love with someone, but, even more surprising, nobody seemed to really fall in love with her. Men were happy just to admire her. Then they passed by and married another girl. Her two sisters, though definitely less seductive, had held two lavish weddings, each with a king. Psyche was the most beautiful girl on earth, but she was sad and lonely, always admired but never really loved. It seemed that no man would want her as his wife, and this caused great anxiety and distress to her parents. That is when her father went to visit the oracle of Delphi to ask Apollo for an advice on what to do to find a husband for Psyche. The prophecy of the god was terrible. Through a pythoness, the god Apollo decreed, "Your daughter Psyche, dressed in bridal dress, should be brought to the summit of a mountain and stay there alone. The husband that was assigned to her, a winged serpent, terrible and more powerful than the gods themselves, would come up and take her for his wife." And that was what happened. On the hill and on the dark, as a light breeze reached her, it was the fresh wind of Zephyr, the mildest of the winds. He felt that she was being raised. She was being taken into the air over the rocky hill to a soft meadow full of flowers. He did his best to make her forget her pain and put her to sleep. She then woke up by the sound of clear stream, and when she opened her eyes, she faced an imposing and magnificent castle. It seemed destined to a god, with gold columns, silver walls, and floors of inlaid precious stones. Absolute silence ruled. It seemed uninhabited, and Psyche approached cautiously to admire its splendors. She remained suspicious at the threshold, where she heard a noise but could not see anyone. However, she could clearly hear the words,
The house is for you. Come in and do not be afraid. Take a bath and we will immediately honor you. Will get a great dinner.
There was no around her. Never had she taken such a refreshing bath nor tasted such delicious dishes. While eating, she heard a soft music around her, like a harp accompanying a numerous choir. She heard it, but she could not see it. The whole day she was alone, only accompanied by the voices. But somehow she knew her husband would come at night. And so it was. The room was so dark that she couldn't even see any shapes. When she felt he was close to her and heard his voice whispering sweetly in her ear, her fears disappeared. Without even seeing him, she was certain that he was not a monster, but the loving husband she had always been wishing for. The following days passed in full joy, and Psyche could not remember any happier time of her life. However, day after day, she was feeling sadness that she could not see her husband. So one night, Psyche decided to ask his husband,
My love, why do you always hide in the shadow? I would so much like to know how you really are.
Isn't the love we share enough? All I'm asking is that you don't try to see me. In the darkness, we are equals.
I'm sorry if I annoyed you. That wasn't my intention.
Psyche decided to respect her husband's request and pulled the plug on touching the subject. Time passed. Despite being ecstatic, she started missing her family.
They must have been mourning for me, and I am alive and happy. This is not fair, and I don't want my family to suffer.
That night, she asked her mysterious husband to grant her a favor.
Husband of mine, I miss my family so much. I beg you to let me visit them.
Eros accepted Psyche's request because, according to his thoughts, if she decided to return after having been released, that would be the ultimate proof of her genuine love.
Beloved daughter, I thought I would never see you again.
All the people in the palace were surprised with the princess's return. Psyche was adorned with the most beautiful jewels. She looked like the richest of queens. Her jealous sisters got more jealous of her and told Psyche that they did not believe her and asked her to bring them both in her palace. Zephyr, the wind from the west, brought Psyche and her sisters to the heavenly palace. When they got there, they realized that everything their sister had said was true. But this only made her sisters more jealous. The envious sisters decided to poison Psyche's relationship. I know that everything seems wonderful, but don't you remember what the oracle said? You will marry a monster and it will be responsible for your death. Do this. When you sense that he is sleeping, take a knife, turn on a light, and after seeing the monster, cut his throat. Her sisters departed, but seeds of distrust have been planted on Psyche's heart. The night came and her husband was already asleep beside her. The young woman took a knife and a little lamp. As she approached their bed, Psyche realized that this was not a monster, but a young man with divine beauty. She moved closer to contemplate her husband's breathtaking beauty and concluded that he could only be a god. But a drop of hot oil accidentally fell from the lamp. Eros woke up in pain and saw the light.
Forgive me, my love. I know I made a mistake, but we can make this right.
He looked her at the eyes, and facing Psyche's distrust, he left their bedroom without uttering a single word. Eros flew out the window. Psyche immediately ran after her husband. It was dark and she could not see him, but could hear his heartbroken voice.
Love cannot live without trust.
Those were his last words before flying to the dark sky.
The God of love, he was my husband, and I did not trust him.
Psyche jumped after him but couldn't reach him and hit the ground. The fall injuries were light, but her heart was totally broken. When they heard that Psyche had returned, her sisters ran to the cliff, hoping that they would be blown away by the west wind. Zephyr began to blow, and the sisters threw themselves into his arms, but he did not seize them, letting them fall from the cliff. The poor Psyche began to help with the tasks of the goddess Demeter's temple, but she never stopped thinking about her lost love.